Hi, I'm Autumn. I'm telling my story here as I write my memoirs and get it ready to put out into the world. And I hope that something that I share while I tell my story and tell my truth resonates with somebody and makes them feel less alone. I told my story about how I felt not alone for the first time ever when I walked into a ACA program. I hope that I can be that first something when you hear a story that's like yours and it makes you realize that you're not by yourself. That's what's really important to me. So I wanted to talk about my mom and a little bit about my history and give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, right? So my mom was severely mentally ill, as I'd said, and delusions. She heard voices. Uh, she was just a very, very sick woman. And she self medicated with a lot of substances, a lot of substances. And, that was the thing that you did back then. That was, everybody around me in those days were doing substances, and everybody in the music industry were doing substances and massive quantities of substances. And it was a really appropriate time for someone to start self-medicating. So, and I'm really lucky because my dad was able to stop when he became a parent, but my mom wasn't. She was not able to take them casually. And after I was born, she went into a postpartum depression, and that triggered her onset of schizophrenia. And she continue to self-medicate very heavily, as well as a lot of destructive behavior. She spent a lot of her time on the streets, um, in places where nobody should go, I'm sure. And I went from about the age of 1 when she left my dad. She left my dad for the neighbor, and he was a coke dealer. And he I don't know, promised a new beginning or a new start or something. My dad was trying to get her to help, and she didn't want that. So she ran. And I was with her until I was about 6 years old. And a lot of the stuff that happened within those 6 years till I was 9, my dad didn't get actual custody of me, but I lived with him on and off, starting at about 6. So those core formative years, a lot of a lot of caca occurred, and she was um, just very, very sick. And when you didn't understand what she was hearing, and as a child, and things could get really abusive physically and emotionally and mentally. My mother also sold me for drugs, for parties. She took me to parties. I would be passed around. I told a friend one time, and I talk about this a little bit in the book. I told a friend this story one time, and he put a name on it for me. He said, "Oh, I remember hearing about those. Those were lap kits." And yeah, so I was a lap kid, and that was pretty hard to cope with as a young child, as you can imagine. My dad never knew that until much later in life. Did I tell him those things? Just he only knew what he was witnessing from the outside, and it was that kind of stuff was really difficult for him. But he knew that it was imperative that he get control over me and get me away from her. But the courts did not favor on the father's side in those days at all, no matter what happened. She got arrested multiple times, using me to smuggle drugs over the border, down in and out through San Diego. And um, she never she never lost custody of me through that. I literally had a judge recommend my father for immediate custody, and the family courts wouldn't recognize that because it was just just always the rule the mother had to do it. But the mothers sometimes were sick, and just like the fathers are sometimes sick, the mothers sometimes were sick. And that system failed me because I should not have been left alone to, I should not have been left alone with her. I shouldn't have the memories that I have. I shouldn't have the phobias that I have, the stressors, the freeze, the freeze when I walk through a room full of people and I have to evaluate every single person there. And I have to get a feel for every single person there. I shouldn't have to do that. I'm in my 50s now, and I've done a lot of work on myself. Years and years and decades of work on myself. And it's still something that I carry with me. And I think I just always will. It's something I have to learn how to cope with, you know. But having these types of experiences and have carried over into my adulthood in so many destructive ways, and it's so obvious what happens to kids as they grow up, and that's kind of a lot of what I talk about in my book and my memoirs, is my journey through adolescence and into adulthood after going through these pretty crazy, horrific things. And, you know, it's important that I talk about it. I have to tell my story. I don't want it to be for nothing. I need to help somebody else. And if I can do that, just by telling my story and being a little uncomfortable on a camera and the internet and opening myself and being vulnerable. And I believe in that in general anyway. I believe that you should just be honest with people, and, you know, you get so much further, and it's just such a better experience if you're just honest. You know, you don't have to be mean, but you can be honest. And I'm being honest, and I'm going to release this book. And so I better get used to talking about this stuff, and I better get used to the world knowing about my secrets. And it's because they shouldn't be secrets. It wasn't my shame. You know, those things happened to me. I didn't do them. You know, that's the shame of those people that got away with everything. That's the shame of the systems that are broken. It's not my shame, and it's not your shame. Don't carry it anymore. Put it down. I'm putting mine down. I'm trying really hard. But, you know, it's a process. Doing this is part of that process for me. Shining a light into those deep, dark spaces where society lives, people know about. People go on a regular to these parties. What's in the news? There's all kinds of this stuff, and it's been going on since forever. We're never going to overcome it if we don't start acknowledging it and don't start talking about it and shine the light. Spotlights. I hope I can help. Thank you so much for listening to me. I just hope it doesn't come off super whiny. This is hard. And I hope I get better at these videos and talking with you, and not too many ADHD tangents. Okay, thanks.